Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested.
And it's Jeremy from Tested.
Welcome back to Projections, our show about AR and VR. Let's start with some AR.
Oh, that's a change.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, we were at the Augmented World Expo.
Aw.
And we saw a bunch of headsets, one of which had a very successful Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, would have raised $200,000?
On the promise of a very wide field of view. This is called the Mix headset, Mix augmented reality headset, and their promise is 96-degree field of view for the image you see through their glasses.
I mean, that's pretty comparable to current VR headsets, like
Exactly.
the Rift and the Vive.
And most AR headsets that we've used, whether it's the HoloLens or the Meta, have a very reduced field of view because of the optical limitations. Whether they're using an optical combiner or they're using some actual special optics, like with the HoloLens, and what we think the Magic Leap will use.
Does this use an optical combiner?
It does,
right?
It does. So this, we got to try and put it on. This headset is very much like the Meta, in which there is a display on the top. Display bounces through a combiner that combines its reflection as well as the pass-through light from the real world, and then through their special series of optics. Now, I don't really get the physics behind it, so we chatted with the CEO of the company to learn exactly how they do it from his point of view. Hi there. Nice to meet you, Mr. Zhang.
Hi, nice to meet you, Norman.
So we're here at Augmented World Expo, and it's the first time we're looking at the Mix augmented reality headset. You guys have a Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, right now.
That's very successful so far.
Right now for these glasses, you can get a 96-degree field of view of AR. So it's very close to current mainstream VR glasses. So we get a stretch goal that have a VR mask to cover the outline, outline light. So then you can just switch it back to VR. So right now this Mix, it's actually really mixed reality because it mixes the VR and AR right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like AR, if you can get that projection in front of you, mask it out, the black background, and it turns into VR.
Yeah.
So the excitement around the headset is because, like you said, there's a diagonal 96-degree field of view. For AR. I'd love to know how you accomplish that, because if I look at the headset and you're using a very standard combiner, right? An optical combiner.
Yeah.
You have a display, two displays above the user's eyes. And so can you walk me through how that light bounces through and gets you that wide field of view?
Yeah. So this is very special new technology of the optical solutions of AR. Traditional optical systems of AR doesn't make this small size and so big FOVs. So the point of this, how to make the big FOV is that we use a very special lens here, and that is just the lens is the most close to your eyes. So we use the most close eyes lens to bend the light and then use it to pass through the outside light.
Right.
So we're actually using a ways of polarization for the light. The inside light and outside light is in different polarization channels. So they will go through different focal length channels to make this all be clearly seen by your eyes.
Right. The way I understand it, displays, which right now in your prototypes are LCD displays, they emit images that bounce off a lens, and on many of the AR headsets we've seen, the lens is pretty far away. And then that gets bounced to your eye, but then it's, like you said, polarized, so the outside light can still come in, and you're moving that lens very close
to the eyes.
To the eye.
That's the point of how we make the big FOVs.
And that's custom manufactured, custom designed optics. They're very close. Is it just one lens there, or do you have multiple layers?
It's actually multiple layers. It's actually 7 layers.
7 layers in that lens.
7 layers of the lens. It's very complicated structure. And we got several structure of the lens and several structure of the filters and more layers of the lens. That's very complicated. But actually, it's can be much more cheaper than waveguide. Because waveguide solution is more expensive than this. So that is very suitable for making a consumer product. Right now we're having our Kickstarter, and right now we're only charge people for the glasses for around $450 and $500. So that is a very affordable price for consumers and for developers, of course.
And so you mentioned waveguide. Those are two fundamentally different
AR approaches, like a Magic Leap would be very, very highly engineered, custom optics. But like you said, $450, that's very affordable. So this type of technology with this type of optical pass-through and the combiner, where's your fixed focal distance for the object?
Right now for this prototype, it's on 3 meters. 3 meters are very from your eyes, but we are kind of figure out that maybe the 1 meter is the best way. Because for AR, you just touch something in the range of your hands.
The near field.
Yeah, the near field is better for AR.
Right.
So I just mentioned that we have a VR mask. So for the VR mask, we can switch the focal panel to 3 meters for VR. And far away is better for VR, and near is better for AR.
How difficult is it to change that lens from the technology to get to 1 meter?
Just change the distance between the mirrors and the panels.
Got it. Just change that angle, change that distance.
Yeah, change the distance.
Got it. And that's interesting that you want a different optimal focal distance between for VR, which you see a lot of objects around you, and AR, which is the closer objects.
Yeah, of course.
Now, of course, there's tracking and world tracking. The prototype that you have working here, you're working with a partner to do their 3DOF tracker, and they're doing outside-in.
6DOF trackers for the headset and for the controllers.
Right.
For the outside-in tracking.
Now, with this setup that you've designed, will that also work with controllers, or are you aiming for hand tracking?
Right now the dual camera module is actually working with controllers because Microsoft also do that for products. But firstly, we are kind of focused on do the positioning and do the sense of the environment. For the controller, it's not very difficult, but we kind of believe that in the future you don't need actually physical controls in your hand. You can just use your hand to do all of the interaction with the virtual user interface.
Sure.
So we're kind of integrated some hand tracking solutions inside the headset with one of our partners, which is called Usense. So also we are kind of partnered with Leapmotion, and we believe that cooperating with this expert in hand tracking area is a kind of ways to have our headset more close to consumer, more close to daily life, not just streaming about gaming and entertainment.
And working with partners allows you to use their expertise for their skeletal model and algorithms, so you don't have to make it all in redundant development.
We are just make two things. One is optical systems, make it a wider FOV and small size. And second is inside tracking, because we believe that the tracking and the sense of environment, the SLAM technologies and algorithm is the basic of the AR and VR.
Absolutely.
And then every kinds of interaction, hand tracking, eye tracking. We have also eye tracking partners and also hand tracking for the controllers. All of this is kind of called a secondary interaction ways, so we can cooperate with some experts in that field.
Very cool. And what are you shipping for Kickstarter backers?
And all of this product will be shipped by December this year.
December of this year. I know you're still in the prototype stage right now. Hardware iteration is very fast. What are the last remaining pieces you have to source to make this a product? I assume you have your lenses figured out, but the display panels, are you all locked in, or what other things you have to?
Actually, the most important is the optics and the panels, and also the lens for tracking.
Right.
Right now the panels not really settled down, because right now we are kind of still trying to make this customized to make it more smaller and more brightness of the backlight.
Sure.
So we are about to make it settle down by the end of this month, and then we will start the mass production, start the tuning of this product for mass production.
Well, awesome. Good luck. We can't wait to see the real consumer product, even the developer kit, and it's very nice to meet you.
Okay, nice to talk to you.
So, after that interview, I still am not fully sure I understand exactly how they get that 96-degree field of view. But both of us put on the headset.
It doesn't seem terribly magical to me. I mean, it just seems like there is the reflection, and that I get that much field of view of the reflected image, of the reflected essentially image above the mirror. The problem for me is, even if it is 96 degrees, because it's not enclosed and I don't have blinders on either side of my eyes or field of view like I would in VR headset, my actual field of view is much greater.
Yes.
So what I'm seeing in augmented reality is a small subset of my entire field of view, which makes it feel smaller.
Which, although it's not the size of a postage stamp.
No.
Right? It's bigger than that. 96 degrees is still pretty big. It's still, you're right, you notice that it's not all-encompassing. And I think that's why in the demo they showed, the rendered objects were not big objects. It was a person-sized object. So when you're looking at the person, the avatar, it did fill up that field of view.
Right.
And the way they did the optics spread the image quality apart. It wasn't very sharp at all.
Right. It wasn't terribly sharp, and it was inherently translucent. Like, the way that this type of optical combiner works, I don't think there's any way for them to make opaque images augmented onto reality.
That's a huge problem with AR they need to solve with this type of AR.
There are other approaches, like the one that Vario is taking, where it is essentially a VR headset with cameras on the front.
Yep.
Then you have complete control over what the viewer sees.
But then you also lose the real-world fidelity.
You lose the actual reality.
Yes, yes. This seems like a hack solution to take an existing approach and spread the image more. I'm afraid that people buying into this won't have the content in VR, the experience in VR they assume. Because one of the selling points is you can mask the real world, and then you see the image you see a VR image.
Aren't they promising Steam VR
They
compatibility?
are, exactly. But if the optical system they're using kind of dilutes the image, then it's not going to be a great VR experience either.
That's a great selling point, not a great experience. I mean, Steam VR games are meant to be played in VR.
Yep.
And if you're playing regular Steam games, they're probably meant to be played on a monitor. I mean, there are ideal scenarios for that. And getting them to work in another medium is not necessarily always a good thing just because you can.
Right. And of course, they're working with partners for their hand tracking, their SLAM world tracking solution. They're only making the display.
Right.
And so the real benefit of this, and it's not super expensive, so the people backing it, hopefully they realize this is not consumer targeted, really. This is more of a development tool to experience a wider field of view, a little bit of translucent AR, so you can develop for whatever final hardware will require that type of experience. Get a little bit ahead of step with the curve.
You've tried HoloLens. I have yet to try that.
Oh, really?
How does the opacity compare to that?
It's still, with HoloLens, it's not fully opaque. You're still going to be able to see through. I don't think any system has it right now where you can get a really solid opaque image across the entire color spectrum.
But at least HoloLens has built-in SLAM and decent tracking.
Yeah.
They haven't even yet incorporated their SLAM system into this yet, so who knows?
So anyone who did back the Mix AR headset, I'd say, temper your expectations. Know what you're getting into, and realize that you may have to do a little bit of fiddling and be patient as they figure out all the other components that make this a viable AR headset.
Right, and at the end of the day, this is just another stepping stone towards the great consumer AR experience we all hope we have one day.
Well, back to VR, and again, we were at E3 recently, and one of the places we went to was the PlayStation booth, where we played a wide range of PlayStation games.
That was pleasant to see, yeah.
Yeah. They've really, I think, invested not only in that first generation of PSVR games from a year and a half ago, but now a whole new crop of games.
Yeah, and some by some very small teams, some nice indie titles that's not just all first-party Sony stuff.
Two of the games that I want to talk about this week have a similar approach to PSVR. Now, we know the limitations of PSVR related to standing VR or Oculus or the Rift or Vive
360,
experience.
sure.
Room scale. PSVR, a lot of people are maybe sitting down, maybe they're just using the gamepad, they might not even have the Move controllers. It's not very necessarily physical. And some games are now catering to that. So one of the games is called Ghost Giant, and you played this and you chatted with the developer about it.
I did, yes. I would call this a delightful experience. It is a refreshing comparison to the sledgehammers going into everyone's brain that you see everywhere else at E3. This is a much cuter, delightful title that's probably well suited to being somebody's first experience in VR, but it's adorable. And I chatted with the developer, like Norm said, and he told me a lot about the development process. Hey, we are here with Klaus from Zoink, all the way from Sweden.
That's true.
Welcome to America.
Thank you.
You have made a delightful VR game called Ghost Giant, in which the player is the ghost giant. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, yeah.
And what is the gameplay? How would you describe the gameplay that I just experienced?
Well, it's a kind of like a puzzle adventure game. You know, I'm a big fan of Monkey Island, Grim Fandango, those kind of games. So I thought with VR it'd be cool to do like something like where actually we acknowledge that there is a player in the game, in a puzzle game. So it's really about you connecting to this little cute character called Louis, who's a cat, who's kind of at the first really scared and lonely, but you become his friends, and you're the ghost giant, and he's the only one who can actually see you. So it becomes almost like you become his friend, and you try to help him through a quite complicated and a hard day.
But so he's the only one that can see me, but I can interact with more of the world.
Yes.
I can open up doors, I can move things around, I can activate gears, I can lift things, and that some things that I lift other characters can see. So I can engage with more than just him.
Of course.
So I guess it's a puzzle game at its core.
Yeah.
One thing I really like that you've done with the camera is you've put things very close, which VR with this generation is inherently kind of a low resolution compared to 4K. And so I like that you've done that. Was that a design intention from the beginning?
I think so. I mean, first time I tried VR, I'm a big fan of VR, and I've been working with games for 20 years, and I was like, whoa, finally something new. It's like, wow, this is kind of cool, And I thought one of the first things I tried was just sitting at a desk, having a lamp in front of me and just moving my head. It was like, wow, it feels cool that it's so when things come really close to you, it feels like, the movement of your own body is quite important, and it becomes like a big output from just moving very little. And I'm a big fan of also stop motion stuff. And I want it to be feel like you're in a stop motion set almost, so everything is very close to you. The game has sort of like a puppet style to it, So it's sort of almost like built kind of as puppets, little puppet houses. Everything is put together very kind of almost like paper and very clunky, sort of built together. Very sort of fun and playful way.
Reminds me a little bit of something Media Molecule might put together in a game
definitely.
jam or something.
Yeah. Big fan of that too. Yeah, definitely. So, so for me, it was just when things are very close to you, it feels like the interaction is more fun. Yeah.
Well, it certainly maximizes the graphics because the textures that you've applied to these objects, while the objects are kind of low, maybe low poly, maybe not, but they certainly look, like handmade objects. The textures that are on them are rich, and you feel like you can touch them. So I like that you've put things very close to the player. That's interesting. Is there, and it's not a walking game, but it's a standing game where I can rotate around. Have you decided to put most things within 180 degrees of the player, or is there any actual rotation that I have to do?
We're still working on the game. We are having some sort of sets where you can actually move all the way around, like maybe grabbing the whole set and actually pulling it around yourself, But we always we make sure that it's really built around you, really close. So you can always feel like you're either standing in a square or sitting in a lake or something that just feels natural, that you don't want to move out of it. Everything is just in reach of you. It's a game that we want anybody to play it. It's a kind of like first time VR player game, So this is something you want to bring up at Christmas for the whole family to try around.
It's a lot like playing with toys, because as I reached out, I could just experiment.
Yeah, exactly. You can go through the story and play through that and have fun with that, but you can also just have fun picking things, putting people, pulling things, see how they react if you poke them, a bit like a toy set, yeah.
Do you have a sense of scale yet? I played this one level for about 5 minutes, and then the character I was interacting with ran off. I presume I follow him. Maybe I go to another area and have another set of puzzles?
Yeah, that's how it works, yeah. Yeah, we'll take you through a story that takes about 4 hours, I would say, but we are building in, which we've done with some of our previous games too, that you have the full story that you go through, but there's other sort of mini quests that you could do inside the world too, that playing around with things is interesting. We want to, have a little bit of sandbox feeling to it, because it's fun when people find out things by themselves in a way.
Do you have a release time frame yet?
No.
Okay. And right now it's exclusive to Sony.
Yes.
Is that right? So that's the only place people will be able to find it. Is that right?
At the moment, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I can't wait to play it myself. Thank you for your time, Klaus.
Thank you.
So we both had a chance to step in there.
Yep.
One of my favorite things, as I said in the interview, was that they put everything so close to the player.
Yeah.
Because the PSVR has some strengths. One of them is not resolution. It's the lowest resolution of the home headsets that we have. But putting things so close makes the most of those displays. I felt like I could discern quite a lot of texture detail.
Right. They use the scale, right? There's a really great dollhouse effect where you as this ghost, you're not a ghost wandering through the streets. You're a ghost that's kind of like a giant. You're the ghost giant.
Yes.
And the world around you is puppet scale. And characters go about the world. The main character can see you, and you are bending down, looking at them. You're interacting with them, poking them, moving levers around the world. It has this great dollhouse toy box feel.
That's a good description of it. It's not an escape room, but it is definitely a puzzle game where you are, a giant, and you can interact with this world, and you're basically looking for things. Like you had to find a key at one point in the demo that required lowering a house. There's a man in the house sleeping, holding onto the key, and I had to change the channel on the TV using a big button until I found the channel with sheep on it, and that caused him to fall asleep, allows me to grab the key, open up a lock. So this is fun, and it's a cute environment. There's nothing scary about it. Ironically, you are scary. You're the one who's terrifying because you're a ghost giant.
Yeah, and the main character interacting with you, having dialogue and looking at you, calling to you, that AI and NPC interaction, I think, is going to be a big part of the experience of this game. Which is the same kind of experience with the other game we played, which is from Justin Roiland and the new Squanch games. It's called Trover Saves the Universe, and this one also has an NPC that you interact with. Now, before we get into our impressions, I also chatted with a member of the Squanch Games team, so let's jump in and hear that. Hey, Maddie, Squanch to meet you.
Hey, Squanch to meet you too.
It's awesome to see Squanch Games. You guys are a new studio with Justin Roiland, of course, co-creator of Rick and Morty, showing off a new game, Trover Saves the Universe, for PSVR. Tell me a little about the game.
So Trover Saves the Universe is a sci-fi comedy action platformer where you play as yourself, who's a Cherorpian, and Trover in third person, and your goal is to, an evil beaked monster stole your dogs, put them in his eyes, and gained unstoppable power and vision. So you're going on an adventure to save your dogs and the universe.
Now this is really interesting because you're playing as both you and a character that has dialogue voiced by Justin Roiland, but you also control Trover. So you're on a chair, but you can control Trover, and yet he talks to you and interacts with you. How does that work?
So we like to think of it as like a buddy comedy, where you're sort of the silent protagonist, and then in VR, there's a lot of opportunities for great narrative of like a character actually talking back to you, and like the gameplay can sort of be evolved like based off of what you're doing, like your choices that you make, and then Trover being there with you the entire time can comment on all that stuff, and it's like a lot of good opportunity for jokes.
Right, and fundamentally it's like an adventure game. You're traversing through the world both in third person with Trover attacking enemies and you warping your chair to them. And then the commentating just happens nonstop, even with NPCs. How much dialogue is there when you're planning for this game? Because it feels like there's a lot of story and a lot of interaction.
Well, it keeps growing, level by level. There's a ton of dialogue. We really try to make the world feel alive. And Justin, when he's in the booth, we have an overarching story for how we want the level to go. But he might think like, oh, it'd be really cool if I did this thing here. I have this friend who does like great VO, great improv, like what can we do to the gameplay to like highlight that moment? And so we want to be, and developers want to be like modular enough where we can like make that joke happen in that spot, that comes from the improvisation in the booth.
Right, improvisation for game writing, I guess kind of works for VR, because you can even put yourself in the headset, and as you're playing through it, you can say, I want to punch up this scene here. Maybe there feels like some downtime, there's a chance to put in more dialogue. Is that how you guys are doing it as opposed to a traditional script? And
yeah, I mean, we have like I guess it's almost like a curbed script, right? Where you have the overarching, like these things have to happen, we do have to explain this stuff to the player, but there's a lot of opportunity to go off the rails,
Now, as the actual adventure game itself, what I played so far in the demo was lightly traversing the world, a little bit of combat. You can elevate your chair to solve puzzles and see more of the world. What other types of gameplay mechanics are you going to make? Or is it more of just facilitating the story?
So there is an upgrade path for both the chair, you and Trover. You'll find out a little bit more about that in future levels that we release to play.
And the idea is that it's going to be pretty big, the world?
Yeah, we want it to be like a full single player experience. It's both when you buy the game, it's both VR and non-VR. You get it in a single SKU, and we want it to feel like a contained but like pretty meaty adventure, you know.
So on the non-VR version of it, it's still this exact same game where you're in that fixed perspective, but you're just turning around.
Exactly. Like, you know, in first person, in VR, you're the camera, but we just move that to the right analog stick, and there's a couple of changes that we do because we really want everybody to like get to know Trover, get to know the IP, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
And in VR, it feels so immersive when the character is talking to you, making eye contact, even when you're controlling Trover and having one around who'll comment, like, I'm over here now, I'm over here now. How much interaction will there be between him and you, him and other NPCs? Will be moments where just watching scenes play out?
Yeah, like, we don't want to take control away from the player too much. We want it to be your choice to sort of keep moving, or like for example, in this world, you saw Mr. Pop-Up, and you can either sit there and kind of like listen to him go off, or you can move forward in the story. When we provide paths for each of those choices, you know, it can get pretty edge casey, but we really want to like provide sort of those moments of surprise where like, oh, I did that, and I can't believe he actually commented on it, you know?
And the tone of the game is definitely a Justin Roiland, very mature tone, even though the characters are cartoonish. Are you going for just that fantasy, sci-fi, you know, the Rick and Morty type feel?
Oh, absolutely. Like, projected M for mature. But it's absolutely in Justin's, you know, Justin's sphere. His humor is all there. And yeah, we really hope that like so fans of Rick and Morty and fans of his work will sort of appreciate this in that like kind of canon, you know.
Yeah, it definitely has his voice, literally, and also the creative voice there. It's so much fun to play even a demo here. It's great to meet you, Matty.
Great, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
So this game's creator is the same creator as Rick and Morty, right?
Same co-creator of Rick and Morty, Justin Roiland, who also huge in the VR. He did some of the voices for Hover Junkers. Great voice actor. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, great voice actor, great comedic writer. And I think that's where the strength of this game lies. You know, it's definitely, as you heard in the interview, it's a mature game. There's swearing. It's profane. It's gross. But this NPC is a wacky Rick and Morty character style personality.
Very much. The script, the voicing is all very much like Rick and Morty. If you like that sense of humor, if that tickles you, you're going to love this game because it's all about the script.
And it's so weird that you are interacting with the character.
Right.
You're stationary, holding a PlayStation controller.
Right.
But you move the character around as well.
Like you're in the world, but you're controlling someone else in the world.
And that someone else is also talking to you, moving their head and talking to you as you're controlling them.
It's weird, but
and
it works. It totally works.
It's one of those things that on paper it's like, no, this shouldn't work, but totally works.
Yeah, if anything, it doesn't take too many chances. Like with the Locomotion, you're in this chair, it's a seated experience. You teleport from one node to the next, you snap rotate. You know, they played it safe, but at the same time, you know, it's funny. As I said before, it's all about the writing, the humor. At one point, you run into a puzzle. I don't think you can solve.
Right.
Did you solve that
No.
that 6 puzzle matrix?
No.
It was like 9 buttons on a matrix, and you just have to keep pressing them, and eventually it says, this is just a bunch of buttons. I don't think it does anything. Come on down, come on down. It's like, okay, let's just break through the door. And so you hit the door. Yeah. And so it's funny. It's a good adventure style game.
And I don't mind that the adventure style is very simplistic or basic, because really, I am just going through the motions and watching their creativity unfold.
Right.
One of the things they said is that, you know, the writing is live. It's improv. It's very much like Curb Your Enthusiasm. They have this overriding arc, and I can imagine them being in the headset and Justin Roiland playing the game and realizing this moment could use some punch up. There could be a comedic moment here.
Right.
Or this puzzle takes too long. Let's add a couple more lines of dialogue, and then writing that in. And that's what I'm there for. I'm there for the real meta comedic moments, just playing through an episode of a TV show. Almost.
Right. At one point, you do get a new ability. You get your chair is able to rise.
Sure. Yeah.
So I assume there'll be more abilities to unlock. That's interesting. I wonder what those abilities will be.
Yeah. But both in The Ghost Giant and Trover Saves the Universe, you have these NPCs that talk to you.
Acknowledge the player. Break the fourth wall.
They break the fourth wall. They come up to you, and no matter what you're doing, whether you're moving your head around or turning, rotating, they come and they face you. And I think that's a very powerful tool.
In VR, it's especially powerful. Like I don't know if maybe Henry was the first title to really experiment with that eye contact.
Yep.
But
Lone Echo Lone Echo does that.
Okay. Right. Yeah. It really works. I mean, you feel like you're really there and you're engaging with this person and being acknowledged by players in that VR space is interesting. I mean, we see it all the time in multiplayer environments, but not so much in single player stuff.
Yeah, so excited for both these titles. There are a bunch of other games at the PlayStation booth. We'll cover those in the next episode. But until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.